In today's video, we're going to be taking a longer look at the Anbernic rg406v. It released today for $160 retail, and it has a lot of promising upgrades and features to make it one of the best, if not the best, vertical handheld that you can buy right now. I thought we would do a follow-up video to go over more in depth than I did in the last video, cover some features that I left out, as well as maybe some comparison to other Anbernic handhelds at the same price, because there are some changes on this device specifically that are not on other devices that I think make this a really good contender. One of the first upgrades I noticed right out of the box with this is we finally have some new analog sticks. And that is a big thing here, because if you've ever used an Anbernic device in the past with analog sticks, then you would know that there were two big problems. The first, they use these Nintendo Switch style sticks that do not have hardly any travel whatsoever. And secondly, and probably most importantly, they didn't behave like analog sticks. Their analog sticks in the past had a huge problem with snapping to the cardinal directions. So they behaved more like a fancy D-pad and did not give you a whole lot of control. But I'm happy to see that these are a lot better. You have a full range of motion, kind of like what you would have on a Retroid device. And if we go into a Gampad Tester here, you will see that they no longer behave like that. You can get into any little spot. You can make these little circles. And the good thing is they're still Hall effect sticks, so they'll have that durability that you hope for, where you don't have to worry so much about things like getting drift or anything. I'm really happy to see that this has been changed. I will be making another video opening this up, extracting these thumbsticks, and seeing if they will fit in other Anbernic devices like the RG Cube or the 556. I'm just waiting on my second review unit to show up before I do that, so that way I'm not left without a handheld if I mess something up. But yes, this is a massive, massive win for this device. And just to give you a better idea of what I'm talking about, this is a fantastic device that Anbernic released earlier this year, the RG556. It has a beautiful 5.5-inch AMOLED display, but we have these thumbsticks, and as you see, they kind of just snap. They don't really behave at all like you would expect a joystick. And this can be very frustrating, especially in games that require precision. And then that travel I was talking about on these Switch style sticks is very, 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 very small. You barely have any room at all to make fine adjustments. And as you can see, it just wants to go up and down, and it really kind of goes right to the outer edges too. So you have to move very slowly in order to kind of get any sort of precision. But even just trying to go like diagonally here, it's very, very hard. This makes this amazing device not really usable. So I'm really, really hoping that we can somehow get a fix where we can swap these out. That would make this device an amazing contender for a really good $160 handheld. But with these thumbsticks, it's very hard to recommend. And one last thing I want to touch on about the analog sticks, and then I will move on. You can actually take these caps off. I'm hoping that we will find some, third-party, cool, different kinds of caps that you can put on here. These are still that Nintendo Switch style kind of dome cap. I prefer the more concave Xbox style, so I'm really hoping that someone will make a replacement like that. I do want to say a shout out to Russ at Retro Gamecore for pointing that out. He has another video on this. I will link his channel down in the description. I highly recommend following him. He has covered all of these handhelds for the last 4 years and does an amazing job. He also writes really nice written articles on how to make improvements on a lot of these devices, so definitely check that out. Now moving into ergonomics, I remember getting this device here on the left, I think last year. It was the Anbernic rg405v, and I was actually shocked and pleasantly surprised with how comfortable I found this device to be. Now you have these little grips on the back here. It does make the device a little bit larger and a little bit more ugly in my personal opinion, but this device has its own charm, so it's kind of a unique look to begin with. And these little divots down here work really nice for resting your fingers in different positions. So if you need to play a D-pad centered game, you might keep it in one place, and then you might use a different finger like your middle finger if you're playing something with the analog stick. So it does have a purpose. I think it's very comfortable considering the fact that this is a vertical handheld with analog sticks. This is a really good way to make it so you can hold it without being too bothered by the fact that it's really big and you have to move your fingers around. So I think that works just fine. And they did offer this in a few different color options. I have a gray one in the mail. For some reason, my samples were sent separately. I got the off-white one, and it's kind of hard to show exactly what it looks like with the camera white balance, but as you can see, it's more of like a yellow cream, especially opposed to the buttons. I know other reviewers have said that this bothers them. I'm kind of in the same camp when it comes to that. I think it should have just been a white-on-white device, even with white buttons. The Skittle buttons are nice, they are very cool, but I just think it just stands out too much in one side of the device compared to how everything else is white. And the yellowing and the cream color on it, it's just, in my opinion, it's okay. I think that the gray one will probably be more aesthetically pleasing to the eye when it shows up, and they did offer a see-through black one as well that looks nice, but I mean, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Next thing I want to cover is the screen. Now, if you had the Anbernic 405V or 405M, you would know that it came with a terrible screen out of the box. It was a 640 by 480 resolution, which is a little low, but not too bad, but they put this awful over sharpening filter on it that just made everything really hard to see. It caused me to actually kind of have a bit of eye strain when using the device, especially reading text. But I am very, very happy to say that we now have a 720p screen, still a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is perfect for the systems that this thing plays. And it's a really welcome upgrade. I'm going to try to zoom in a bit here with the camera and see if it will really show the sharpness, but yeah, as you can see, it has more than enough clarity, and they don't have that awful over sharpening filter. So that is a welcome improvement in my eyes. And when it comes to battery life, the Anbernic 406V is the same as the 556. It has a 5500 milliamp battery. The 405 also came with that battery. It is quite large. It's definitely enough to get many hours of gameplay, even playing higher end systems like 3DS and GameCube and PS2. So I'm happy to say that it's still comfortable having that battery. And if you flip to the backside here, you will see that there is a fan and vent, which is going to keep the device relatively cool. One of the problems that I have with the RG Cube is that it heats up right in the middle of your hands, and it can be a little noticeable, especially on longer sessions. And when you're trying to play like fighting games and stuff where you're moving around a lot already, it's just not something I love. I will say that the fan is very quiet. I don't have the overhead camera set up right now to be able to capture the sound of the fan at full blast, but just trust me that if you have a game going or any sort of media playing, it's not going to disturb you at all. It's not like the original Steam Deck fan where you could literally hear it over the game, like cranked to like 80%. It's a good fan. It does a good job at what it's supposed to do, which is keeping the device cool and keeping the heat away from your hands. So that's good there as well. And it wouldn't be a review on an Anbernic Android device if we didn't talk about them having a dedicated button for their launcher. Their launcher works okay. I don't mind using it for all the lower end systems, but for anything like Dreamcast, GameCube, and PS2, I prefer just to use the actual applications themselves. But for all the lower end stuff, it seems to work pretty good. I'm going to take the time to try to set up Emulation Station at some point. I just haven't gotten there yet because I have a feeling that once my gray unit shows up, I'm probably going to use that one as a daily unit. So I'm not going to bother going through that yet. But it's there, it works. You have one button and it opens it. I wish that I could find a way to change the functionality of this button to something I would like to use more often, but good for beginner users, I suppose, or people that aren't super comfortable setting things up for themselves. And the next thing I want to talk about with this device is video out. Now, traditionally, Anbernic's been pretty good about including some way of doing video out with their handhelds. With the exception being the 405V and the 405M, for some reason, did not have any built-in way to get video out. But their traditional route is to go with a mini HDMI port. And with this device, as well as all the other Unisoc chips that they've released this year, they're doing a USB-C out. And it works fine. I believe it goes up to 1080p. The only major downside is you cannot charge the device while the video out is going on. Even with a dock, I've tried several of my Nintendo Switch like alternative docks. I've tried it with my Steam Deck docks, and it just is going to do picture out only, which is kind of a bummer. I feel like they could have just maybe had like another port up here or something, but this does have a good sized battery, so I mean, maybe that's not too bad. It is a handheld after all, but I just wanted to point that out for anyone that was curious about the video out functionality. It works, but there is that one drawback. With all that being said, it is time to get into gameplay. Now, this device is very capable compared to the 405V that came out just last year, so it's really interesting to see that really big spec bump that we got all across the board on this in just 1 year's time. But I'm really excited to say that you can play about 95% of GameCube and PS2 games with no problem. Many of them will upscale quite nicely to about 2x. You can even play 3DS up to 2x resolution in most cases, and even some native Android gaming is pretty good on here now that we have these good thumbsticks. Alright, for the gameplay portion, we are going to be playing a game a lot of you guys requested. You guys wanted to see a Tony Hawk Underground game. I loaded up Tony Hawk's Underground 2. This is one of my favorites. We're playing on the Dolphin emulator, so this is the GameCube version of the game. And I have it set to run at 2x resolution, and it is running really well here. I haven't really run into any major slowdown or stutters or anything like that. It seems like it's just played full speed. The only thing here is, of course, I have to mute that sweet, sweet soundtrack, which is kind of a bummer because that's what makes these games so much fun. But we will move on to the next one. Next, we're going to play some Need for Speed Underground 2. I know this is a game a lot of people love to play even to this day. And unfortunately, this one falls into that tiny 5% where the game just doesn't run at full speed all the time. And I'll kind of do a little bit of a quick race so you can get an understanding what I mean. There's a little bit of choppiness and slowdown just depending on what's happening in screen. It's not horrible. I think if you're willing to accept a few frame drops here and there, you could definitely get by. But I've seen some instances, sometimes, depending on what happens, it can drop quite a few frames. Now, other Need for Speed games are pretty much going to have a slightly worse experience, in my opinion. Things like Carbon and Most Wanted just do not run very well at all. But this is one of those games that runs pretty good most of the time, but you do have those occasional frame drops. If you're okay with playing at a native 1x resolution, because that is all you're going to be able to do with this without having even more major slowdown. But then again, there is, the ability of an update for Dolphin or the PS2 emulator to come out, and maybe there'll be some more improvement. But as of right now, this game is one of those games that runs mostly okay, with the occasional slowdown and stutters, which, like I said, for a racing game can be a detriment if it happens at the wrong time. I'm not even able to replicate it here, but I have seen it happen a few times, so it's not a super often thing, but just something to be wary of if you see other people showcasing this game and not really talking honestly about the possibility of some frame drops. Now, in honor of Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero coming out in about a month here, I thought we would play the cult classic hit Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. This was probably one of the most revolutionary fighting games to come out of that era of PS2 and GameCube and Wii. I'm a super big fan of this game. I'm not very good at it on this device yet because I haven't acclimated to the controls, but it does run quite well. And this game, yeah, it runs amazing on here. I think I'm upscaled right now to 1.5x. I could probably even push it to 2x, but I don't want to reload the game to test. But so far, it's looking like it runs super well. It ran pretty decent on the 405V, which barely could play PS2 games, so there is no surprise here. But still, with these joysticks and everything, it's great to see. I'm excited for the new game. Comment down below if you guys are going to be playing Sparking Zero. I have not been this excited for a Dragon Ball Z game since I was literally a kid, so this game is going to have to hold me over for the next month or so. And we covered this game in my last video, but because it's so many people's favorite memory on the PS2, I thought we would play Simpsons Hint Run again. And I will say that this runs really amazing. We're still upscaled to that 1.5x. I don't know if you could push this one to 2x or not. I don't think so. Because this is a kind of intensive game, but having these new analog sticks for this game has been great, and it's a real treat to play on this screen, especially with the 4:3 aspect ratio. This isn't one of those games where the widescreen patches really look good, so it's always good to play it in the native aspect ratio. And actually, in the PS2 emulator, you can bump up the saturation on colors, which I have done here, and it really, really gives this game some new light. Here we are with Marvelverse Capcom 2, and I just want to showcase this D-pad is so amazing. You can hit all your special moves, no problem. It's really easy to roll. I am awful at this game. It is my mission this year to actually try to learn how to play this game. Not here in this video, clearly, because I'm not doing a great job. But I just wanted to showcase that amazing D-pad we have here. It's very versatile, and I'm very happy with it. Like I said, Anbernic has always crushed it with D-pads, but this one especially is really, really good. And that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, if you made it this far, please consider liking and subscribing. I am very new to YouTube, so I have lots of improvement to make. But if you want to comment some constructive criticism or feedback down below, I would love to read it and try to get back to everybody in the comment section. But yes, I do think this is a great device. I'm very thankful to Anbernic for sending it out. I cannot wait to review more handhelds and other tech products. If you have an idea for a video, please comment it down below, and thank you for watching.